People rarely stay because they want to. They stay because leaving is structurally difficult. This distinction matters. Most explanations focus on attachment, love, hope, fear of loss. These explanations feel convincing because they are internal, but they are incomplete. People stay too long even when attachment has already weakened, even when desire has faded, even when clarity has arrived. What keeps them in place is not emotion, it is constraint. Leaving is not a single action, it is a sequence of disruptions, and systems resist disruption. Relationships, jobs, roles, and identities all create exit friction. This friction increases over time, independently of satisfaction. Early on, exits are simple. Few shared assets, few shared routines, minimal coordination. The cost of leaving is low, so people leave quickly when misalignment appears. As time passes, structures accumulate: shared schedules, shared spaces, shared obligations, shared social positioning. Each layer adds resistance. None of these layers require emotional attachment to function. They operate mechanically. The system becomes dense. Density increases friction. At a certain point, staying becomes the default, not because it is preferred, but because leaving requires too many simultaneous changes. This is where people misread their own behavior. They interpret continued presence as desire. They assume endurance equals commitment. It does not. It often equals constraint tolerance. The system does not ask, "Do you want to stay?" It asks, "Can you afford to leave?" As long as the answer is unclear, the system remains intact. Exit friction delays decision-making. The longer a system runs, the more expensive it becomes to stop it. This expense is not always financial. It is logistical, social, temporal. Leaving requires coordination across multiple domains at once: housing, routine, social explanation, future planning. Each domain adds delay. Delay feels like indecision. It is not. It is structural congestion. People often wait for certainty before leaving, but certainty does not reduce friction. Time increases it. This creates a trap. The system requires clarity to justify exit. Clarity arrives only after prolonged exposure. By then, exit cost is highest, so people stay. Not because they believe the system works, but because dismantling it feels overwhelming. This is why dissatisfaction can coexist with stability for long periods. The system is uncomfortable, but survivable. Survivable systems persist. They do not collapse quickly, they degrade slowly. During this degradation, people adapt. They lower expectations, they narrow needs, they reduce expression, not because they want less, but because reducing internal friction is easier than increasing external disruption. The system teaches accommodation. Accommodation is often mistaken for growth. It is usually constraint management. Over time, staying becomes normalized. The abnormal becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces urgency. This is another form of friction. Leaving requires breaking routine. Routine is efficient. Efficiency is rewarded by systems. The system does not reward correctness. It rewards continuity. This is why people often leave suddenly. The departure looks abrupt from the outside, but internally, it followed a long period of constraint accumulation. The system did not break. It was abandoned once friction crossed tolerance. Tolerance varies. Constraint does not. Constraint increases predictably with time. This is why people often say, "I don't know why I stayed so long." They are searching for an emotional explanation. The cause was structural. Leaving required simultaneous change across too many variables. At some point, a single variable shifts, a job changes, a lease ends, a routine breaks, exit friction drops. The same dissatisfaction that was tolerable yesterday becomes decisive today, not because feelings changed, but because constraint relaxed. This creates the illusion of sudden clarity. Clarity was present earlier. It was suppressed by friction. People often blame themselves for this delay. They assume weakness or avoidance. The system deserves the blame. Systems are designed to preserve themselves. They increase exit cost over time. This is how stability is maintained. Stability does not require satisfaction. It requires resistance to change. This principle applies broadly. People stay in jobs they dislike because exiting disrupts income, identity, and status at once. They stay in roles that no longer fit because transition requires temporary loss. They stay in relationships that no longer function because disentanglement is complex. None of this requires attachment. It requires constraint. The longer the system runs, the more domains it touches. The more domains it touches, the harder it is to exit cleanly. This creates a structural asymmetry. Entry is incremental. Exit is bundled. People enter systems gradually. They leave them all at once. Gradual entry hides cost. Bundled exit amplifies it. This asymmetry explains prolonged staying. It also explains why advice fails. Advice focuses on decision-making, but the barrier is execution. Deciding to leave does not remove friction. It only adds psychological pressure. Pressure does not dissolve constraints. It intensifies discomfort. This is why people can decide to leave many times without doing so. The decision is not enough. The system must become easier to exit than to maintain. This shift rarely happens through intention alone. It happens when constraints loosen externally, when timing changes, when coordination requirements drop. Until then, staying is rational, not emotionally healthy, but structurally rational. This reframes endurance. Endurance is not always commitment. It is often inertia. Inertia is not passive. It is produced by accumulated structure. Once this is understood, many patterns become clear. Why people defend systems they privately dislike. Why dissatisfaction is minimized. Why exits are delayed until collapse. Collapse reduces exit friction. When a system becomes intolerable, friction becomes irrelevant. This is why many departures happen during crisis. Not because crisis clarifies values, but because it overrides constraint. Constraint suppresses action until pain exceeds friction. That is the threshold. Most people do not leave at optimal timing. They leave at tolerable timing. This is not a failure of insight. It is a feature of structural resistance. When structure changes, effort appears to work. In systems like this, constraint determines duration, not desire. Within this structure, no amount of internal clarity can produce exit while friction remains high. People do not stay because they are confused. They stay because leaving is expensive. Understanding this does not change the past, but it explains it.